Welcome back, super friends. Today we are going to use properties to solve decimal by decimal multiplication. We are also going to be multiplying decimals by each other, also using the steps that we used in our previous lesson. But what you'll need today is a math notebook or folder, pencil to write with. Don't forget that super brain of yours. Stay tuned for the video. All right, super friends, we are going to use properties to solve decimal multiplication. You will have a few problems that are going to ask you which expression is equivalent to the expression that they show you. What that means is just what's another way to write this as an equation. So we're going to do two different ways for each of these problems. There are going to be three problems that we're doing. So let's get started. So when we're breaking apart, or not breaking apart, but when we're finding an equivalent expression for these things, we're literally just using expanded method. So for our first expanded method, what we do is we're basically writing down the equation. What would it look like without the decimals on one side of the equation, and then you're also multiplying the decimals back in on the other side. I know it looks weird, it looks like a emoji, but that's not what we're doing. So what I'm doing is I'm taking my 1.24 and I'm removing the decimal so that it just says 124. Then I'm taking my 0.4, removing the decimal so that it only says 4. Now, where the decimal comes back in place is we put it back over here on the right-hand side of those parentheses. So that 1.24 is going to look like 0.01 because I need two numbers after the decimal and that number is just going to be 1. So that's like saying if you multiply 124 times 0.01, it's going to look like 1.24 after you're done multiplying it. The same goes for the 0.4. What would that look like? 0.1, because if I multiply that 4 by 0.1, I'm going to get 0.4. Now, another way, you know Miss Joyce likes her ors, another way to do it is if you break it up by the number first. So we still have our double set of parentheses and we're still multiplying inside of all of them. But instead of it being 124 times 4, we can do our 124 times our 0.01. because that's what would match up. And then we would do our 4 times 0.1 because that's what would match up. So these are really easy once we find the pattern of it. So we'll do our next example. All right, so for our next example, we have which expression is equivalent to 0.5 times 7.2. Again, we're going to use our two methods. We are multiplying inside the parentheses. We're multiplying those two parentheses together. And then let's start breaking apart our number. So without the decimal, I have 5 times 72. If we are taking out the decimal, we have to put it back in the second set of parentheses. So I would have 0.1. You're literally just replacing all the numbers that you see with the 0 or a 1 when you're multiplying the other set of parentheses. So then our 7.2 is going to also be 0.1 because it's only one number after the decimal. That's literally what we're doing for that first part. Or we can separate them together with their own number. So that 5 would be times the 0.1, close parentheses. Then the 72 would be times the 0.1 as well. And that's mostly just saying, okay, you need to remember how we would underline our decimal, our number after the decimal to see where to put it in the answer. That's what we're doing now. So we're saying, okay, that 5 needs to be right after the decimal. That's why we're multiplying it by 0.1. That 72 needs to have a decimal between the 7 and the 2. That's why we're multiplying it by 0.1. That's basically what this means. And again, you might not understand it completely, but I just want you to notice the pattern. What is the pattern that we're looking for? Does this answer, or does this broken up expanded form have as many numbers after the decimal as I need for that number in the equation? Let's do the last one. All right, so the last one says which expression is equivalent to 0.71 times 2.8. So again, let's set up our parentheses. Probably the easiest part for us. And then if I take away the decimal point, I have 71. If I take away the decimal point, I have 28. So 71 times 28. Now let's go ahead and multiply by that decimal point that I took away. So you see for the 0.71, I need two numbers after the decimal. So that's going to be 0.01 because I needed those two numbers. Again, the 2.8 only needs one number after the decimal. So that's going to be 0.1 because I only needed one number after the decimal. Okay, or we would do 71. Sorry about that. We would do 71 times our 0.01. And then we would multiply that by our 28 times our 0.1, which is basically just attaching the decimal to the whole number that it would match with.